Hi guys, welcome to our Facebook Live event. I'm your host, Viola Ifakawa Xavier King, and I work for the PI Health Board of Washington. And for today's agenda, we will be educated by an awesome and wonderful friend of mine. He works as a counselor and a board member of the Pacific Islander Health Board of Washington. But before I introduce him, I'd like us to take a moment of silence for our friends and brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and to also reflect and acknowledge the land that we host this event on. For me, it's the Puyallup tribe. And please bow your heads and just say a little prayer for the people that need it. Thank you. Now, to introduce himself would be Chasman Terry Mel. Go ahead, take it over.
All right. Well, hello everyone. My name is Chasmin Ongel, but I go by Chaz. And I am one of the board members with the Pacific Islander Health Board. And I'm here to talk about how we can navigate through higher education, Pacifica edition. Um, so, for those who have teenagers and wanting to help them prep for college in the future, these are just some tips and tricks and some of the systems that we can navigate through together, so that they have a chance in attending college after their senior year of high school. Um, yeah, so let's go through it together. There will be a brain break kind of in the middle so that you can ask questions so we can all catch up. And then we'll continue on with the presentation. So I have titled this PowerPoint called Ombasiul. Ombasiul is the Palawan word for navigator or advice giver. And a lot of us, we are navigators, trying to canoe our way or paddle our way through a lot of the different systems here in the US America. So I thought it was appropriate to use this word in describing who we are, especially as we're wanting to enter into higher education. So welcome. So who am I? Nakatang. My name, again, is Jasmine Ongea Tarimel. I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I went to Tai High School in SeaTac in the Highline School District. After I graduated, I attended the University of Washington where I majored in American Ethnic Studies. And then I took a year off before I decided to go back to school to get my master's at Seattle University in education, school counseling. After a brutal 3 years of 2 summers of classes and essays and whatnot, I graduated and I got a job offer in the Puyallup School District back in 2017 as a school counselor at a junior high school. Was there for about 2 years and then made my way back to Highline where I was a student. And now I am a counselor at a middle school with a total of almost 5 years of experience working in the school system. Just a little bit about myself. My parents are from the islands of Palau or Belau. They immigrated back in the 80s, and I was born in 1991 here in Seattle. But just to kind of give you like kind of a geography picture, Palau is located in the western part of Micronesia. It's also the westernmost part of the Pacific. So my dad is from the village of Ngaralong up in the north, through his dad's side, and through his mom's side is from an island called Angar to the south. And then my mom is from the island of Peleliu, where she grew up pretty much on the beach. So she had a great time swimming and just being with her family. But this is where my parents are from in Palau. So just a little bit about me for context and kind of the journey of where I'm from and where I am now. And this is also pictures of when I graduated from Seattle University. To the left is my dad, and to the right is my mom, and then on the bottom is pretty much my family, my friends who attended my graduation. My auntie at the time, 5 years ago, had said that not only did I graduate, but it was the family that graduated. Like this is a collective experience for everyone, and so I was very privileged to just share with them and have a great time. So today's agenda, this is what we're going to be going through. I have a little icebreaker activity. It's not really much of an icebreaker. It's just a question that I want you all to ponder. We're going to go into talking about the type of student, and we're going to be focusing on the traditional student, applying to universities and colleges and what that process looks like. We're going to talk about, how to finance school because we all know financing school is expensive. Identifying the right school because there's so many schools out there, and we can, we have to find the right school that's going to be a good fit for your student. And then what's next? Like what is the goal in attending higher education? So let's get to it. So, what words or thoughts come immediately to mind when you think of higher education? I'm not sure how I can see people's responses. But mainly, I just want you to ponder on yourself if you're watching. What is it? What is higher education to you? I'm hoping with this presentation, it either affirms or changes the way that you see higher education, because we can believe a lot of different myths. We can believe a lot of different um, notions about what it is. But I'm hoping that this resource here within the presentation can help you as you navigate through the process. So, and just for fun and just kind of making it more pacifica for us, um, I like to use the analogy of a navigator of a canoe because in each of our islands we all have canoe stories or navigational skills. So within this presentation, the navigator is you or the student navigating through the different systems that we have placed in higher education, and the canoe and the oar are the tools and the resources that can help you navigate those waters. And higher education is the ocean. So this big ocean that we don't know where to go. So we're going to be helped by the canoe, and then we're going to try and find the land, the dream and destination. Okay, it sounds like Moana, but before Moana, we were truly navigators. We were truly seafarers, in our blood. So um, yeah, so we'll use this kind of analogy to help guide us understand the system so that you can help your student. And thank you. So different types of students. I had a whole like in mind of like the different students, that exist at a university or community college because we all have different journeys, we all have different walks of life, but I condensed it down to two. So the non-traditional student. Who is the non-traditional student? This student probably graduated from high school or they got their GED and then they went straight into the workforce. Like they decided not to go to high school, to college. They just started working. And why did they start working? Well, especially within our island culture, most of us are caregivers for our aunties, our uncles, or grandparents, and so we have to work in order to take care of our families. So for years, maybe like 5 or 6 years, they just go on just working and taking care of the family and just going on with life. And then sometime down the road, within their 20s, maybe 30s, they have an opportunity to get a college or to go to college, get a bachelor's degree, get a certificate program, or go into a trade school like plumbing or journeyman or electricity or whatever, you know. And so that's kind of the non-traditional student, and we have a lot of those within our community. But eventually, any kind of higher education is like a certificate. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a university. It could be a program that's at the local community college. It could also be, a test at a specific school. Like becoming a beautician or becoming a plumber or whatnot. Like those are still part of the higher education process. So I just wanted to put in this slide just to encourage anyone who's watching who's kind of in that position that it's never too late to go back to school. And it's also very beneficial for you if you do go back to school and get a certificate, because the opportunities will be open for you. Now, we're going to be focusing more on the traditional student because many parents want their children to be successful. They want them to go to college. So, like, they graduate from high school, they get a diploma, and then that's usually what they graduate in May or June. Then they go off into get their bachelor's degree, which is, they go in the fall after they graduated. It takes about 4 to 5 years. That fifth year is actually very common amongst universities. So students don't usually graduate in 4 years. If they do, kudos to them. But usually for about 5 years right now is the average. Then they might take a year off, or they might just go straight to get their master's degree, and that varies. About 2 to 3 years. A master's, a student in their master's is going to take. And then they might take years off, like 10 years off, and decide to go get their doctorate, or they might get their doctorate right away. It just depends on the student. And a doctorate degree takes about 4 to 5 plus years, depending what they're studying and what they need, and also where they're at in life. So today, this is where we're going to be focusing is on the traditional student. Before we apply to universities, you have to qualify for applying. So what does that mean? So there's this thing called CADRs, the College Admission Distribution Requirements. So these are classes that a student takes while they're in high school. So for the different subjects that need to take, for English, they need to take 4 years of English, which means they cannot get out of it. In order to qualify, you have to have 4 years of English. For math, there are up to 3 years of math. For social sciences or social studies, so that's like world history, U.S. history, 3 years. They need to take 2 years of a world language, so like Spanish or American Sign Language or Chinese, German, any language that's offered in high school. They need 2 consecutive years. So if they decide to take like German 1 year, skip the second year, and then go into German again, that does not count. They need to take 2 consecutive years, so back to back years of a language. They need to take 3 plus years of science, including 2 years of a lab science. So lab science is like physics, it's chemistry, it's something specific in science that's not like general science. They need to take a senior year math-based quantitative course. So most people can take like, trigonometry was the old word. I think it's pre-calculus, statistics, or anything that has a math-based quantitative content. And you need to take a fine visual or performing arts. So that's like band, choir, art. And they need to only take a semester of it. And an academic elective. So that could be like a social studies elective, or it could be any like writing course that's not part of the English subject. And these are just the bare minimum of what a student needs to accomplish in high school to qualify for admission. To be competitive, however, like if there's a dream school that you want to get in, it is recommended that you take 4 years of at least the four core classes. So 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 4 years of social studies, 4 years of science. Because by taking those courses, you stay competitive. And then and colleges like to see that you're continuing to maintain a trend, and also your ability to complete these courses. So it's better just to continue taking more classes rather than just the bare minimum to get it. And applying to universities. Applying to universities is a holistic application process. So what does holistic mean? Meaning they take different parts of your application into consideration. And we're about to break it down in the next couple of slides. But they don't just focus on one piece, whether it's just your grades or your SAT scores or your curricular activities. They all play in part in making a decision in whether or not you get into the university. So SATs and ACTs. This is one that I really hated when I was in high school, because it's a test that you have to take on a weekend. And they spew out this number after you take the test that determines whether or not you're going to succeed in college. So we have the first one, the Scholastic Assessment Test, and then we have the American College Test. Most universities are asking for the SAT, but you can still submit your ACT. At least for the schools here locally in Washington, like University of Washington, Washington State University, they require the SATs. And the SAT can be very daunting, can be very, um, let's say, like very stressful, because it's like a series of questions that they're asking you, but that you feel like you don't know. And then you get stressed out, and then like you get like a really bad number. So like when I took the SATs, it was uh, all three subjects. It was like math, reading, and a writing component, and the score was out of 2,400, and I bombed that test. I think I got like 1,300 out of 24, which is really low. Um, and so like right now I think it's out of 1,600. So like all this to say is I don't want you to be so stressed out about the SATs, because it's only one component of the application process. So I got a 1,300, and then when I took it again, it went even lower. But hey, I still got into college. So how to prepare? Like, what should you do to prepare for the SATs? Well, PSATs are taken usually during their junior year. Some districts are different. They'll take it their eighth grade year or their freshman year, and it's just a test that's very similar to the actual test, to help them like know the structure and know what kind of questions are being asked. Understand weaknesses, like what is your weakness? Is it math? Is it reading? Is it writing? And practice those things, like really work on what your weaknesses are. And practice, but don't overdo it. There's people who go into prep classes that's outside of the school, or they're working on it every day. You should also have a little bit of fun, because everything that you learn can go away if you don't rest and take care of yourself. Another good way to prep for the test is understanding root words, because there's going to be asking you about definitions of words within the test that might be confusing. But if you understand the root word in its Greek or Latin form, then you can kind of understand what the context of the paragraph is asking. So another tip that I would advise you learning into is the root words of different words. Process of elimination. If you're faced with a multiple choice A, B, C, or D, and you know for sure D is not the correct answer, go ahead and cross it off. The more that you can cross off, the better of you picking the right answer. And this test is not you. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't define what you're capable of. It's just one piece of the puzzle of the pizza that universities are looking at. So again, you can have a really low SAT score, but you can have bomb grades. So um, enough about these SATs. I'm moving on. Academic grades, yay, transcripts. This is like your GPA, your grade point average. So like, your A's, B's, C's, and it goes by semester. So like when you look at your transcript, you should take a look at what your child's transcript looks like, and they go by credits like point 0.5, 0.25, and shows all the requirements that a student needs to graduate from high school. Um, Competitive grades, so like A's and B's, yes, those are the top grades that you should go for. You should excel in each class. But universities actually they really like to look at trends. So let's say that your child like just really didn't do well freshman year, like they got B's and C's and maybe an F. So usually grades are kind of indicative of something happening that year. Maybe they just didn't care about school, but then something happened, and then sophomore year they just kind of go start going up, and start doing pretty well. universities under really are sensitive to that and want to understand like what's going on. And if they're seeing a trend going up, that's actually really good. And it actually won't deter you from getting accepted into the university. So how do you prepare for this? Ask for help. I worked with students for the last almost 10 years, and students are afraid to ask for help because they don't want to seem like they're stupid or dumb. If Albert Einstein or any of the great people of our time who didn't ask questions, we wouldn't have the inventions or the things that we have. So really encourage your students to ask for help. If they don't understand something in their classes, encourage them to ask the teachers. Utilize school resources. A lot of schools right now have after school programs or tutoring services to help your kid. Every student is given an A from the start of the class. Everyone is an A. It's about maintaining that A throughout the semester and throughout the year. And B's are still great. And some C's are too. But try and maintain A's and B's and some C's up in there. Stay motivated. It's very easy to stay off track. Wanting to just play with friends or just do something else, but stay motivated, especially if you want to get into your dream university. It's important that you keep your eyes on the prize, and always be learning. We're always learning. Our kids are learning from YouTube. They're learning from TikTok. We learn from articles. It's important to always have a mind of learning. And that's going to help you stay motivated too. Extracurricular activities. So these are like after school clubs or things that you do on a personal level on weekends. So academic related could be debate club or key club or DECA. It could be like cultural clubs that, like Pacifica clubs or Pacific Honor clubs that are started at different schools. Those can count into your extracurricular activities. Sports related like football, baseball, volleyball. If you're a captain of the team, that could fall into extracurricular activities. But if you were just playing and you don't have necessarily a role, that doesn't negate of not putting into your application. You definitely should put that in. Religious involvement, if you were volunteering or helping out with your church or anything personal related that you like, should be put into your extracurricular activities. But how do you prepare for this? Well, like if you're in middle school, if the student is in middle school, like what can they do to get involved already? Community involvement. What can they do to um, um, seek people that need help? Working at a soup kitchen or working for Pacific Islander based organizations or finding an internship. Or create something at school. I know that schools really love when students are wanting to create clubs that don't exist at the schools. If they wanted to start a peanut butter and jelly club, why is that important? Because so we can feed the community. There's a lot of people that don't eat. And that's a really great way to add to your resume. Talk with your college counselor or your school counselor. What opportunities that are out there, conferences, school visits, or opportunities to meet with older folks, you know, um, to help them prepare for college. Like those can add into your extracurricular activities. Connect with your teachers and see if your teacher can be an advisor for a new club. There's so many different opportunities at the high school that people just need to ask. Personal statement. Now, this is the big one. This personal statement is basically your interview to the university. There's some universities that would require an in-person interview, like because they want to get to know you better. But there's like 50,000 plus, maybe even 100,000 plus people that apply to different universities. So your personal statement is your interview. And you have to ask yourself, what is it that's gonna make you stand out from others, and what is important to you? What has shaped you and made you who you are today? And just your story is like important. And usually personal statements are about 500 words. So how do you prepare for this? Be specific. When you write your personal statement, you want to use words and ideas that are related to your story, names, and why it was important to you. Because as you be more specific, a personal statement could be the difference between you getting accepted and you not getting accepted. Let your story inform your direction. Too many people are thinking about, oh, I can talk about diversity, or I can talk about, my time in baseball, and they can be very open ended, and it's like the same essay that's being written. Like you want to capture the person who is going to read your essay. So let your story inform your direction. Process your story. Like what is it when you were a kid or when you were a teenager that that really affected you and made you who you are today. Or maybe it's your parents, their sacrifice that really admired, that you really admire, and it's who you are today. So think about that. Revise, 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 and edit and edit and edit. Like you want to have many people look at it, give you ideas to make it stronger. And you can reuse statements for multiple colleges because the same question is being asked by many different universities. So it's not an issue to reuse the same statement for University of Washington that you can use for Washington State University. And to get started, I would suggest free writing. Just let your mind write about whatever you want, and usually those ideas come out. The other essay that comes out is your short response essay, which is about 250 words. This is a question usually about what you think and like an opinion. For example, some statements could be like, why is diversity important? Always make it personal. Like, why is diversity important to you? You have an experience about diversity. You just need to know how to pull it out and work through it. And you connect it to your own story. So this could connect to the previous story, or it could totally be a different story. And this is a very important part of the essay as well, because it shows your thinking and it shows your critical thinking skills. And other requirements that some universities require could be a resume. I know that some universities do ask for cover letters or recommendation letters. And also, there's the what else do you want us to know? A tip on that one: do not restate what you said in previous parts of the application. Put in something different that you could not mention in your personal statement. Um, Admission counselors get that so many times, and it's just very redundant and very repetitive. So if you do need to answer this question, just put something different that's not being said in the personal statement. And other miscellaneous items that different universities have that are uniquely to them. Um, yeah. Okay, a brain break. That was a lot of information in just like 30 minutes. uh,
That's so cool.
so I don't know if there's anyone that have any questions or.
Yeah. If you on the right side of your screen, there'll be comments. There's a private chat and then a comment one. We have from Lashante.
Oh,
Uh,
that is a great question. We're actually going to go into that in just a moment, but I just wanted to stop right here so that we can take a break and process all that's being said, or if you have any questions about the previous slides. But yes, we will talk about scholarships and how to find them.
Also, we have another question from it says, if the school says that SAT or ACT is optional, should you take it anyways?
I mean, you probably were already taking it because I'm pretty sure there'll be universities that will want it and you will want to submit those scores. I just think it adds into the portfolio of who you are. And it is a very small percentage, so it's not going to affect you that much. It's really the crux of your essays that's really going to bring out and going to stand out to the admissions counselors that are reading. So even if it's optional, I would still put it in. That's just my opinion. Other people probably would say they don't want to, and that's totally fine. I know that when I went to Seattle University, they asked for it was optional to do the GED, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. So
We also have another question right here. Can you
mhm.
see it, Jasmine?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. everything you said also applies to someone trying to get back into college after 20 plus years. That's
It's a different process, but the um, they can still get into college after 20 plus years. Yes, it's like community college usually are is the route before getting into the university because they've been out for so long. So community colleges or local colleges can lead to university if that's what you choose to do so. Yeah.
no right on. Okay. So as a student and then as a counselor that you are
Yeah.
right now, what was the one mistake that you would always see students make when applying for college or getting ready for college? Students and parents.
Oh. Would you mind restating that question? I'm thinking
So
about it, but
So it's kind of like a two-part question. So for
yeah.
you as a student, when you were a student getting prepared for college and stuff,
Hmm,
and as a
hmm.
counselor, what were the common mistakes and common things that people didn't really get when preparing for college, and how has that changed for people now?
Uh, I think doing things last minute.
Island time.
um,
That's what.
like seriously though, because like I don't know. I just remember like when I was in high school, like I really wanted to get in college and do all these essays, but I was also tired. It was like draining and emotionally draining because you're putting yourself on the in your personal statement, and your story that I didn't even want to share with my own parents. Like
Mm. Was it hard to talk
so
about yourself?
yeah, because there's things about myself, where um I didn't want my parents to be burdened by it, and it was very, very, I mean, that's why it's called a personal statement. It's like putting yourself naked into words so that this person can understand your story and who you are and, what you're going to become. Um, so that it is draining. And I think, we don't really take care of ourselves in those process and how we don't really take care of our seniors when they reach that point.
Mm.
So I really wish I had been asked, like, I really wish someone would ask, like, hey, are you okay? Because it
Ah.
really is a counseling moment when you're creating something so beautiful yet heartbreaking. And
Mm.
it doesn't always have to be heartbreaking. It could be something that, is very passionate for you and you love it. I'm just the ones that really, really captivate me when I'm reading essays is the ones that are very personal and have shaped who they are. Um, so, and what's the second question?
What's the difference between then and now when you're looking?
Oh man, there's so many opportunities right now, like so many different resources that students have access to, especially with technology. Like there's articles upon articles and resources where you can know how to get into college, how to write a personal statement, how to be a better writer, and I think how utilizing these resources is really going to help you be successful getting into colleges these days.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think really, really using that is going to be key.
We also have another question in the chat. It says, "Do you have any advice for parents trying to create a space for our students to be ready for college, or think about pursuing higher education without seeming
Mhm.
uninterested or being too aggressive?"
Yeah, because I know I talked to my niece or nephew about it, and they never want like to bring it up.
Oh yeah.
Um, for me, my dad, we talked about college when I was a kid. I didn't really know a lot about it. Um, but I feel like having conversations about the future and not really pushing an agenda. Because I know that parents they mean well. They want their kids to be successful, and some parents probably want them to be a specific career, like being a doctor or a lawyer or something that they could really be proud of. But I think whatever the kids want to be, um, that's already something that they can be proud of in itself. So if it's wanting to become an actor, if it's want to become a singer, and finding those opportunities for them to enhance their gifts, I think that's a beautiful thing, you know. And just providing those like there's opportunities out there to learn about being a doctor at universities or different colleges. I know that for me, it was the Pacific Islander community that had a lot of different opportunities at the University of Washington. that really led me to do the work that I'm doing now. And that inspired me because of what they did. So if you live locally here in Washington, getting in touch with the leaders at University of Washington, I think would be key, just to kind of see that they can see themselves going into a university. Um, oh shoot, I know I'm just rambling on. I'm not sure if that
No, it's
actually
fine.
totally answer your question. I just think communication, constant communication with our children about college and the benefits of it is going to be key for them to get interested. Um, yeah.
I'll just save my question for after we
Okay.
finish it up. But yeah, I mean, I'm good to start again. I'm really hooked right now.
All right. Cool. Cool. Let's see. So financing school. This is a huge one that a lot of families are worried about. It's like, how do we finance school? We think about taking out loans. We think about scholarships. How do we get scholarships? So there are different scholarships that are offered in kind of three different areas. So local, usually some high schools have scholarships. It's very competitive because like it's usually one or two at about $1,000. Or your neighborhood or churches or local organizations or college bound. And I'll talk about college bound in a bit. But look into your local neighborhood in your area to see if there are any scholarships. If you go to the community centers, or if you go to your child's high school, usually they have a college counselor that helps students identify scholarships that are available within the area. Even on the state level, there's scholarships. Like in Washington, we have Leadership 1000, and then we also have a scholarship. I forgot the name of it, but it's part of like the private schools like Gonzaga, or all the schools that are on the east side of Washington that students can apply to. We also have the national scholarship. So I was a recipient of the Gates Millennium Scholarship back when I was in high school. It's no longer. I think it's under a different name called the Gates Scholarship. But it was a scholarship that covered my tuition and everything that I needed when I went to college. So there's those national scholarships that are also very competitive. We also have the Asia Pacific Islander American Scholarship Fund that is has quite a bit of rewards to students, so they have more of a chance of getting it. Um, and so there's on the national level, and there's also international. I'm not sure of other Pacifica nations. I know for Palauans, um, any Palauans that live in the U.S., they're citizens of Palau, and there's tons of scholarship opportunities to go to Taiwan or Japan or New Zealand or China that is paid for by the government. So I'm wondering, like, what other islands or opportunities do islands have if they're thinking about going back to the island? Sometimes they have like a a caveat where if you pay to go to school, you have to come back to the island and work for like 5 years or so. So I don't have a list of those scholarships from other islands. That's one of the things I want to do in my research. But I'm wondering, like, if you're Samoan, if you're Tongan, if you're, and from Hawaii or, from any of the Pacific nations, what maybe government scholarship that might be available. Um, and then these are from my Washington residents. It's called the College Bound. If you had your child was in seventh or eighth grade, there was hopefully information that was given out to families regarding the College Bound Scholarship. So this is a promise from the state of Washington that regardless of like how low income the family income is, if it's at a particular low income level, um, uh, youth will, if they wanted to go to community college or universities, they'll have their tuition paid for. So just their tuition. We're not talking about room and board or books. There might be a little bit of money for books, but this money will be given to students from those families and get their tuition covered at least. And here's another one: the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. So this is how you can get money in the form of loans and grants from the federal government. You never have to pay to apply. That's why it's called free application. A lot of people have been scammed because they think they have to pay in order to apply for money. No, it's called the free application for federal student aid. So always remember that. Um, so what FAFSA is that it's federal dollars that's in a pool. Every year it recycles and it fills up with all this money, different kinds of money, and it's first come first serve. So October 1st is the first day that you can apply to financial aid for the next year. And within this pool, there are subsidized loans. So these are loans that the interest is being paid. You only have to pay the principal back. So if you took out $5,000, there's no interest attached to that. You only pay the principal. You only pay the 5,000 back. Unsubsidized loans are loans that you have to pay back the principal plus the interest. So over time that you have this loan taken out, it'll be collecting interest, and you will have to pay both principal, the how much you took out plus the interest. And then we have work study. These are jobs on campuses. So let's say that you work at a coffee shop or you work in an office as a secretary. That money that from financial aid will be going towards that. So you just have to look for those work study opportunities at your local university. And then there's the grants, my favorite. This is money that is given to students. These could be scholarships from the university itself, or this could be money from a special scholarship that most universities or colleges have that you never have to pay back. And then look at schools with promise statements. So if you're not eligible for college bound, there are schools that also, again, they want students who don't want money to be an issue if it is. There are schools that promise to cover tuition based on family income level. So like University of Washington, Washington State University, Western Washington University, other schools in Washington, at least that I know of, have promise statements that they will not let the tuition be a barrier for you to get your education. And this is given to students via financial aid and grant money. So that grant money that you see could be from the university covering your tuition. And then there are other universities that can cover most or all tuition plus living expenses. So like Harvard is a school that will cover everything if you get accepted. I think if your income level, family level is below 100,000, like your housing, your tuition, your books, everything that you need is all covered by Harvard. Or Stanford is the same way. And some of the high universities are like that. So I would suggest doing your research on where are those schools that would cover everything if finances is an issue. And seeking schools. So there's a lot of different types of schools out there. There's small campuses, there's larger universities, and what is it that what is the type of school that your child would want to attend? Some people really like a small campus because they can find community, find friends, and they're able to get into the major that they want. Larger universities have a lot of different opportunities, and there's that's like sports colleges like UW, WSU, CLU. Sometimes you pick the school by population. Like where are the communities at? What is the demographic? Most schools, are predominantly white, but over the years that's been changing because some universities are 50-50. There's demographics of people that are Pacific Islanders that are attending schools more, so you have more community building up in these spaces. Or programs, like, do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a doctor? And what are those schools that's going to give you the best educational opportunities? And location. Do you want to be local? Here in Washington, we have we have CLU, Western Washington State University, domestic, Stanford, Yale, USC, UC Berkeley, University of Portland. A lot of the schools that are nearby or far away. International, Oxford, Tokyo University, University of British Columbia. There's all different types of locations that we can consider. And it's also online. With pandemic, it's easier to have access to an education. So online is definitely it's a perfect. It doesn't give you the lifestyle or the kind of the experience of a college, but it's definitely helpful if traveling or being able to move is difficult. So what's next? We land. We come. It's the land and the dream. It's making sure that we have all these different resources to help get us to where we want to be. Um, we come to the conclusion of our presentation. I know that you guys probably have some questions, but I'm also putting my contact information here. If you want to hit me up and email me or give me a phone call if you want to talk about your child's paper or revise or edit. Yeah, I'm like here. I wanna see more of our people get into college. So, yeah.
Yeah, we have a few questions here as well. Right here, if someone was on that FAFSA 10 years ago and they
hmm
had debt, can they apply again and be eligible, or is there an age limit for applying?
You can still apply to FAFSA. As far as I know, for me, so like I had some loans I took out when I wanted to study abroad, when I was receiving my bachelor's, and then when I went to my master's, I did have a scholarship that covered 2 years, but my last year, my third year, I had to take out a loan. So in that sense, I can still take out loans to cover that, and it'll just kind of pile into my previous loans. Um, if you are like one day, let's see, someone. I guess this just depends on your situation too. If like, are you going back to get a second bachelor's, or are you continuing your studies because you didn't finish before? I guess this just depends on the specific situation. Um, but as far as I know, with me going from a bachelor's to a master's, I was still able to apply for money through FAFSA.
Also, another question would be, can someone who goes to school in Asian country be eligible for FAFSA?
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
question.
that is a good question. I,
Yeah, I don't have so much experience with international universities. It's especially within our Pacifica community, it's rare to go that far and to go to attend education, whether it's Asia or in Europe or South America. Um, but I do believe that is something that can still happen, like if that's what you want to do. Um, and usually Asian countries or like other countries out of state have scholarships, especially private universities. Private universities have money. And then if you apply to, they usually have money to cover all of your expenses. So,
yeah. Okay.
but that's a good question. It's
Yes.
something that, I will write down and jot down and do more research on. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Question would be, when should a parent actually start preparing their kids for college?
shoot, from kindergarten.
From kindergarten? From
I just
kindergarten?
I just think like I remember when I was growing up, my dad talking about college. I didn't really fully understand it, but I was interested in it.
So how would
You
you like
know,
make a kid interested in college when they're that age?
I know, right? Like just talking about the future. Like I know that when you're in kindergarten, there's like those opportunities to talk about what you want to be when you grow up. You know, um, I wanted to be a mailman. I don't know why, but that was
Mailman.
that was one of the careers. It was a mailman.
Man, mailman,
You
they
know,
go hard.
they go hard. But
Everyone's
like
always Amazon stuff, but Amazon got to go to the U.S. mail to go mail stuff that they can't go to.
right,
Let's
right.
let that in.
But just I just remember my dad just like talking about, oh yeah, you're going to be in second grade, like, talking about elementary school. I was just a curious kid, so I would ask questions.
Okay.
Um, but
What's the example that a parent should not do?
should
Like,
not
yeah.
do. So I'm not one to tell parents what they should do and not
Well,
do
yeah,
for
but like,
their
what's a
kids.
bad
Um,
what mistakes do you see parents do that the kid has always been preferred for college, and all of a sudden something happened and it involves the parents? What?
it's um probably I don't. I'm not saying that usually parents are forcing
Mm,
education down their throats. I just think like how do you build it within the relationship you have with your kid? Um, like showing them the different routes of education. Um, it's hard for me to talk about like what not to do. Because I think a parent and I think that relationship should be strong. At least my relationship with my dad growing up, he was always taught education is important and we need to better ourselves. And he would tell me stories when he came from Palau to Oklahoma and started school. Yeah, he was an island boy in Middle America, and
Oklahoma.
he would walk 4 miles from work to school back home. And it was a hardship, when he had established, himself here in America, and he wanted his kids to have a better, easier time, and not what he went through.
Okay.
So he would tell us stories, and um, and also I think it also helped seeing other family members in college. And then there's a lot more Islanders right now who are going to get their degrees. Um, and so when I saw my auntie graduate from Washington State University back in 2001, I don't remember this, but my dad was telling me the story that I had told him that I'm going to get my master's. I'm gonna
Ooh,
do
right
it.
on.
Did I say that? I can't confirm with myself, but my dad did. And he saw me walk on that stage getting my master's, and he started crying. Well, he didn't want to cry, but I saw him like,
He didn't cry, but he cried.
yeah. He didn't cry, but I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
Right on.
Um.
Wow, that's a thank you a lot for sharing that
Yeah.
story.
I definitely want to continue pondering on that question though of like what can you do for your kid, um, because I didn't have an exact answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to take the time and to ponder on that and to email the person that asked that
Right on.
and to provide that answer because it's important. Like your parents sometimes they don't have all the resources. I had to navigate the system myself,
Ooh, okay. Right.
so I come from that place rather than a place where my dad helped me out. Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any more questions? Just, if not, I think I'm gonna close this out.
I'm definitely open to personal Zoom meetings too. If you want to
Mhm.
email me
Oh yeah,
or
did you
chat
leave
if
your
you have a
email in?
question. Yeah, it looks
Okay,
like
right
it's on the
there.
comment.
Right on.
But yeah, I just yeah, we can definitely have a one-on-one and continue the conversation on education. So
Well, thank you very much, Chasman, for your time and the effort that you put into making this and actually helping our community into having a better understanding of how to prepare our kids for their future in education. I know for a fact that I will do my best to help my nephews and nieces to prepare them for college and annoy them. I hope our viewers I hope our viewers would do that as well. Um thank you for our viewers for joining. You guys got a lot through this Zoom event. I mean, yeah, event, the Facebook Live event. And honestly, we as Pacific Islanders need to start changing the narrative that's been placed on us by, Western society that we are dumb and are only good for sports. And to be part of that change as parents, as uncles, and as aunties, or adults in general, we just need to push our kids towards higher ed. And as one, and as our wonderful guest Chasman stated, higher ed doesn't really have to mean doctors or lawyers or all that jazz. It also means plumbers, electricians, carpenters. And for our younger audience, if you think that you climb, it will live its life thinking that it's dumb.
Mhm.
You excel at something different. You just didn't find it yet. So don't give up on education and please go to college. We need you. I need you. Chasman needs you. Represent. And thank you a lot. Peace. Peace.